The year is 1945. Bess Myerson, daughter of Russian immigrants from the Bronx, becomes the first and to this day the only Jewish woman to be crowned Miss America. Hank Greenberg, the baseball star who once refused to play on this day on Yom Kippur, hits a ninth-inning grand slam that sent the Detroit Tigers to the World Series. 2 years later, the film Gentleman's Agreement, which exposed lingering anti-Semitism, wins the Academy Award for Best Picture. Arthur Miller, Saul Bellow, and Norman Mailer sit on bookshelves nationwide. Senator Abraham Ribicoff brings a Jewish voice to Congress. This was the beginning of the golden age of Jewish life in America. The era right after World War II was a time when Jews achieved economic security, political acceptance, and communal strength beyond what had been known in centuries. From the 1940s until recent years, this era is described as feeling like a bear hug, a sense of security, belonging, and acceptance. The Harvard Gazette describes it as a time when American Jews could be truly our Jewish selves, embraced by both our heritage and the larger society. Can you imagine the pride and excitement families felt seeing Hank Greenberg and Bess Myerson, the main stage of US pop culture? The golden age of Jewish life was not only about pop culture or politics. These moments of pride and visibility were matched by the internal building throughout Jewish communities. Between 1945 and 1965, over 1,000 synagogues were built or rebuilt across our country. Graduate programs in Jewish studies and Jewish academia was expanded. We invested heavily in education. By 1959, more than 80% of Jewish children were enrolled in some form of Jewish education. Jewish institutions and Jewish life were built brick by brick. Every synagogue built, every student taught, every program launched added strength to the framework of our community. We felt like we belonged. That foundation of acceptance and achievement in Jewish life had been brewing for a long time. From the very moment that Jews arrived in America, we began weaving our values with the promise of this new society: freedom, democracy, and justice. Reform Jews especially mirrored civic life: synagogues with boards, constitutions, and bylaws. Education programs that taught both ritual and civic responsibility. We built Jewish institutions shaped by American structures and values because we were building lives that would be fully American and fully Jewish. Even amid these achievements, Jews have always been a small minority in the US, only about 2% of the population. Our identity and traditions set us apart, and that distinctiveness shaped how we built our community. We weren't living in a golden age because we blended in seamlessly. Rather, our golden age was when we brought the fullness of our identity into the world while holding fast to our roots. The golden age of Jewish life wasn't about numbers or assimilation. It was about taking those bricks, tradition, institutions, and values, and building a community strong enough to stand proudly, both Jewish and American. That sense of a golden age felt so real. Where did you feel that golden age? Was it in your neighborhoods? Was it at camp? At your Shabbat tables? Was it a shared feeling of possibility and pride and connection that made being Jewish in America feel vibrant and secure? Even I felt it when I was younger. One day, you could be the first Jewish president. That's what my parents would often tell my brothers and me. And while my career in politics never quite took off. It felt daring and exciting, yet completely possible for us to imagine. We could be the first. I remember being 22 and living in Washington, D.C. Attending Shabbat in a park, there must have been 75, maybe 100 of us, other young Jews. I thought to myself, how amazing is it in the nation's capital, such a large group of us can gather outside and simply celebrate Shabbat. We sang loudly, we prayed together, we invited passerbys to join us, and we stayed for a picnic late into the night. I was grateful and in awe of the joy and sense of belonging, not just in that community, but the sense of belonging of being Jewish in a major U.S. city. But times have changed. In recent years, so many of us have felt scared to be Jewish, scared for the safety, security of our people. I've heard stories of anti-Semitism again and again from so many of you. Stories from your children's schools, from workplaces, and about relationships with friends and neighbors that have ended. Being Jewish in the U.S. has changed a lot for so many of us, such a short time. And it's not just our personal experiences. In the past few years, newspaper headlines have told a story for all of us. They've read, "Why the Golden Age for Jews in America is coming to an end. The Golden Age of American Jews is ending. Decline of the Golden Age for American Jews." It is not just in the headlines. The strong walls built over the past 80 years now show cracks. Synagogues, once buzzing with life, struggle to keep their doors open. Institutions that flourished now face dwindling enrollments. On campuses where Jewish studies once thrived, Jewish students now encounter harassment and hate. It's hard not to believe the headlines and wonder, is this the end to our golden age in America? But were these last few decades really so golden? Historian Jonathan Sarna reminds us, American Jewish history has been punctuated by golden ages that shimmer in memory, but always contain shadows in their own time. From the 1940s onward, anti-Semitism persisted. Social barriers limited full inclusion in some neighborhoods and institutions. McCarthyism and the Red Scare caused suspicion on Jewish Americans, particularly those involved in politics, labor, and the arts. The rise of intermarriage sparked anxiety about preserving Jewish continuity. While we had achieved some external acceptance, Jews who had fallen in love with non-Jewish partners still found themselves without a Jewish home for decades, facing exclusion during this golden period. We remember it as golden, not because anti-Semitism disappeared, but because we had the resources, confidence, and community strength to build, despite it. Even in seemingly ordinary neighborhoods, we were reminded that we are outsiders. I remember walking through the Civil Rights Museum as a teenager with members of the Reformed Congregation of Memphis. I listened to stories from older congregants about crosses that were burned on their front lawns in the 50s and 60s. They recalled seeing Ku Klux Klan members walking through their streets and their neighborhoods. These were reminders that our security and sense of belonging have never been guaranteed. So when we think back on this era of a golden age, are we remembering reality or a memory? Think about the stories you've inherited, the moments of pride you recall. What was it like for you, your parents, your grandparents, your Jewish community when you grew up? And if you did not grow up Jewish, what did you know or think about this community? Memory is never the full replay of what happened. It condenses, essentializes, and folds experiences into a single powerful image. Memory is the highlight reel. But isn't that what we do with history? We paint it bright. We remember Bess Myerson's crown, Hank Greenberg's grand slam, the synagogues rising across America, and of course we do. Those moments deserve to be remembered. We hold on to the moments that inspire us, and the shadows, the anti-Semitism, the exclusion, the fear, the crosses burned on lawns. They fade from view. Golden ages are not times without hate. They are times when Jewish life, creativity, and visibility shone brightly despite the tensions that persisted. To remember a golden age as perfect is to misremember it. And that brings us to the present. The question is not whether a so-called golden age still exists or whether we are witnessing the end of one. The real question is, what will we do to make this a golden age? Do we still tell our children they could be the first Jewish president? Do we act boldly, even when fear threatens to hold us back? Yom Kippur reminds us of that very possibility. This morning, we heard the words of Parashat Nitzavim. I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore, choose life. Choosing life does not mean ignoring challenges, nor does it mean that the curses described in the Torah simply disappear. It means choosing to engage fully with Jewish life, to study, pray, create, and invest in our community. Choosing life for us today means refusing to let fear or passivity write our story. It means recognizing that we are a minority, but we are also a proud and resilient one. The rabbis of the Talmud discuss who are the inheritors of the Torah and of our traditions. They explain that while the inheritors are often called baniecha, your children, we should actually read it as bonyecha, your builders. Every generation is not just an inheritor of Jewish life. We are not simply children of the Jewish people, but rather builders of the future. Moses' call to choose life sits hand in hand with this teaching. To choose life is not merely to survive, but to shape the Jewish future, to invest in our traditions and in our community. Here at Sinai, we are building toward that golden age, but not just for ourselves. We're building for the next generation and the one after that. When over 70 of us gathered for Tashlich just this past weekend in Lincoln Park, we weren't just casting away our sins, we were showing our children what it looks like to be visibly, proudly Jewish in a public space. When we packed the Elul class this summer, we weren't just studying, we were ensuring that Jewish learning remains vibrant for those who come after us. When we engaged in a summer of social action, we were modeling that Jewish values demand we work towards a more just world. So now the question is upon us. What are we building that will outlast us? What legacy are we leaving? When our grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren look back at this moment in history, will they say, in a time of fear and fracture, they chose to build? Jewish life in America has grown because generations before us chose to be builders. Our grandparents built synagogues, schools, and movements. Our parents built communities, institutions, and networks. And now, the bricks are in our hands. So I ask you, what bricks will we lay down together? What foundations will we secure? What doors will we open? What will we build together so that the next generations, our children and their children, will know that in this time, in our time, we built boldly and we built with vision towards a golden age. We build the era we need with Torah, ritual, pride, and peoplehood. Whether history will call it a golden age is beyond our control. Whether hate and anti-Semitism will persist with the same intensity as today, we cannot know for sure. But whether we live despite the challenges, just as generations of Jewish Americans have done, this is what continues to make us into builders. May we not only choose life, but may we choose to be builders, so that together we can continue to build the next golden age of Jewish life in America. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May it be God's will.